Namaskar. Today I'm going to talk something about the various languages that we have in this country. And many a times there appears to be a claim that Sanskrit was the oldest language or some other language was the oldest language. And there is a lot of speculation. Many researchers, Indian and non-Indians, have worked in this field. But my way of working is entirely different. It is not exclusively academic, but it is realistic. That is why I will look at the things in a different manner. To understand what were the languages that were spoken in the past and how the regional languages in India have emerged, whether any one of them has got any connection with Sanskrit, and if so, which one of them, and which is not linked with Sanskrit, if any. Now, to understand that, I will start with the present time. What is happening in the country as of today? If you take any region which has its own regional language, you will find that even that language is spoken in a different manner in different parts of that region. To give you an example of state of Maharashtra, which has the Marathi language having Devanagari script, the language spoken in Pune differs from the one spoken in Konkan, differs from the one spoken in Uttar Maharashtra, and it is different from the one in Vidarbha Marathwada. For every language, you will find such and similar differences. But I will take up the language spoken by the maximum number of people, and maximum number of people also have that as a mother tongue, which is Hindi, for two reasons. One, Hindi also has got Devanagari script, same as Sanskrit, and it is spoken in a large part of the country. Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand, Haryana, and you will find that the language spoken in one part is different than the one spoken in the other part. Bihari Hindi is different from Haryanvi, is different from Bhojpuri. Then how do we decide which is the correct one? Number one. And number two, which one of them is the oldest? And what about the Hindi that we recognize as a national language? So to start with, one must accept the fact that whichever region we have talked about, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand, Haryana, etc. When anyone wants to study the Hindi language itself, to do a graduation in that language, to do a master's in that language, go for a doctorate, doing some research over that particular language, then the language used in any and every one of this region is the same. That becomes the reference language. In true manners, it is the uh, academic level language that becomes the knowledge center for that language. And subsequently, when someone wants to study other subjects like science, commerce, or whatever, with Hindi as the medium, it is this academic Hindi which gets used for all those subsequent studies. A person may be talking a different dialect at home based on whichever area he comes from or she comes from. But the one used for studies, it's same. Now, what could have happened? Why these differences? So, if we go back, we will find that possibly at one point of time, the people were studying Hindi language at the academic level, but then you move aside and you start mixing with the people, uneducated people, then there are certain adjustments made. Simple example is Lakshman becomes Lakhan. There are some more observation one can see that many people in this area, in the speaking area, uh, have some problem in distinguishing the three pronunciations of three letters. So, like Sarkar, Sh, like Sharam, and Sh, like Subhash. Before I proceed, I have a request to those who do not know Hindi to please listen this carefully because with reference to context, it will become applicable to the language of your own choice. Because later on, one by one, every language would get related to whatever I'm talking about. Some group of people are unable to pronounce v, so they make it b. Vanvas becomes banvas. Now, what could be the reason? The reason is, in my opinion, little ignorance. None of those people are anyway inferior. They they are all educated and they should be in a position to, uh, what shall I say, pronounce it properly. But little carelessness is possibly responsible. So, how do we go about it? How do we try to understand the various impacts that take place? So, for that, we have to go to the script, Devanagari script. So, let us understand the Devanagari script first. Now, these are the 12 letters which are the vowels or swara, and these are the letters which are the consonants or vyanjana. Now, if we see the variations, the swara, all vowels are together. Now, these vowels I will cover up at a later time after covering some of the vyanjan or consonants, and there is a reason for it. Okay, so we'll now consider the uh, consonants first. Now, you see the first line. The first line has got, or first five lines have got five letters each. So I will talk about one line at a time. The upper one, this one, is ka, kha, ga, gha. Now, if you notice this ka, kha, ga, gha is pronounced from the throat, inside the throat. Now, that part is called Kantha. That's why this group is known as Kanthavya. Then we go to the second part. Cha, cha, ja, ja. This, these four letters are pronounced from here above the throat. Now this part is called Murdhastan. Murdhastan. And that is why the group is called Murdhinya. The third part is ta, tha, da, dha. So when you say ta, ta, da, ta, tha, da, dha, you will realize that the tongue hits the top inside of the mouth. Now top inside of the mouth is called tala, and that's why the group is called talavya. The fourth one is ta, tha, da, dha. And when you pronounce these letters, ta, tha, da, dha, your tongue hits the teeth. And the teeth are danta. So the group is called dantavya. And finally, the fifth group is pa, pha, ba, bha. As you pronounce these letters, pa, pha, ba, bha, your lips touch. And lips means oshta in Sanskrit. So the group is called Oshthavya. Now you see the fun, how systematic it has been arranged. First Kanthavya, Kakha Gaga, Murdinya, Chacha Jaja, Talavya, Tatha Dada, Dantavya, Tatha Dada, and finally Oshtavya, Papa Baba. So from inside to outside are the letters arranged. No haphazard, arbitrary arrangement like A, B, C, D, E. Now, each one of these five groups have last one letter. Now, this is the letter which is for the nasal sound. If any one of the four letter, before any one of these four letter is a nasal sound. Before k or before kh or before g or before gh, then this is the pronunciation. Now, again, see the fun. Na, 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 na. So here all in English, you can compromise only with na. Only for this, it becomes ma. So what is this actually? How is this to be pronounced? So original correct pronunciation of this is na. The pronunciation is na. But some people have a problem in pronouncing uh, such letters and they can't pronounce no, so they say anga. And it doesn't stop there. If such person is a teacher, he is teaching 100 students and more than 80 can pronounce no, but they taught anga, so they carry on with anga, and that is what can I say? Uh, Unwanted correction to the knowledge center itself. Now let's see this. A word Shankar. So when you say Shankar, before ka is nya. Shankar. Angana. So this is nya. It is not sha angakara. It is not a angagana. It is Shankara angana. So this is nya. Now coming to the second Murdhinya group. Cha, cha, ja, ja, and last letter is ya. Now, whether it is nya or it is ya, you can't write it in English. How does that ya comes in? Anchala. Anchala. So, it is anchala or anjana. Anjana. So, the letter ya is used for the murdanya group. Next is the talavya group, ta, tha, da, da, and we know all this. This is na, and like ta, tha, da, da, na also hits tala, the top inside of the mouth. Example is danda, banda, da, na, da, danda, banda. You go to the next group, ta, tha, da, dha, na. Again, this ta, tha, da, da is danta where the tongue touches the teeth, and na also it touches the teeth. And then the example is antara, sundara. So before the antara, before the is no, sundara, before the is no. And finally, pa, fa, ba, bha, ma, like ambika or amba. Before ba is ma. Dambha, before bha is ma. That gives you the five nasal sound for these five groups. But what about the rest of these? Yara, lava, sha, sha, sa, ha. This letter is la. This la exists in Sanskrit. It also exists in many other languages like Gujarati, Marathi, Konkani, Kannada, Tamil. But somehow Hindi doesn't use this letter for the reasons best known to them. I'm not aware. But here the question comes up is when any one of these letters is to be, there is a nasal sound before any one of these letters. What should be the pronunciation? Like here, before this is nya, before this is ya, before this is na, before this is na, and before this is ma. Now before this, what is the pronunciation? And for that now we go to the vowels or swara. Let us understand the swara. A, A, E, short one, E, long one, U, short one, U, long one, A, I, O, O. Now what is this pronunciation? This is A, same as A, but there is a dot. This dot is called anuswar. And here there are two dots. These are called visarga. So what is the pronunciation of this A with anuswar? Unfortunately, because of English, one pronounces this as un or which is not the correct pronunciation because for un it has to be dantavya, which is not. For it has to be ushtavya, which is not. So what is the pronunciation of this? And the pronunciation of this is aum. And this aum is the one used for this group. Now I'll give you an example, for a simple example. If the nasal sound is before va, it should be aum, like Samvidhan. It is not Sanvidhan. You write Samvidhan in English, you don't know whether for Samvidhan whether you should use V or W. Some people will write W, some will write V. And Sanvidhan or Samvidhan, which is an adjustment because English is incapable of writing all these nasal sounds. In the English only has got two, na and ma. Rest of them get adjusted. Another example is Sanrakshan. It is not Sanrakshan. Sanrakshan. And the best example is it is Sanskrita. There are two sa. Between the two sa, or rather before the second sa, is the nasal sound. That's why it is Sanskrita. It is not Sanskrit. Now, how do you write Sanskrit in English language? You can't. So you adjust and make it Sanskrit. Same thing happens for Samhita, Bhrigu Samhita, Parashar Samhita. You can't write so make it Samhita or Sanhita, but it should be Sam. And that is where this Aum comes into picture. So there are in all these five and Aum are the six nasal sounds, and they get adjusted wrongly because there is a larger impact of English language because of the British. Some more problems do come up. Now let us see some of the funny problems. Now this, how do you pronounce this? This is ya, and this actually the pronunciation of this is yajnya. Yajnya. Now some places in Western India and Southern India, even today people pronounce it correctly as yajnya. In the olden days, when a king or any wealthy person wanted to perform the ritual, one of the important rituals was religious ritual. One of the important religious ritual was yajna, and the person doing that ritual was yajnamana. Now we all know that yajnamana has become yajmana. So yajna was the correct original pronunciation, but it slightly changed. Some part of Western India and South India, it has become Yajnya. So they have just removed the J part of it. Instead of Yajnya, they have made it Yajnya. But you go to the northern part and it has become Yajnya. Right? So this is how the change starts taking place from one area to another area. Same way, this is Vijnana. Last year in January 2020, I was pleasantly surprised that one of the English newspaper in northern India, I don't remember whether it was Rajasthan, UP or MP, one of these places, had given some story about something related with science, but instead of using the word science, he had used the word Vijnana. He had spelled it Vijnan. The correct pronunciation being Vijnana is near enough, adjustment with English. But he did not write Vijnana. Whosoever he was, I don't know. But it was Vijnana. And if I saw it in a newspaper once, some places someone must have observed a similar uh, mention of either Yajna or Vijnana. Okay. Now, this word is Sadharan. Sadharan means ordinary. You write a before that. The letter a precedes that, making it asadharan. The meaning totally changes. Sadharan is ordinary, asadharan becomes extraordinary. This word is sambhav, means possible. You add a before that to make it asambhav, it means impossible. Now here is the crux. This letter, or sorry, this word is spashta. Spashta means clear or transparent. You put a before that, it becomes aspashta, which means which is not clear or non-transparent. This is the problem for some. Many people are unable to pronounce spashta. So instead, they pronounce aspashta, which actually is this. But to distinguish between the two, they say aspashta, aspashta. Now see the problem. Again, 100 students in the class, more than 80 can pronounce spashta. But they are taught aspashta, so they during their lifetime, they will say aspashta. How can we correct it? I don't know. But the reason I am pointing out all these details to you is because in my lifetime I have seen so many changes taking place. When I was in primary school, we had one subject and that was Modi. Now don't mix up the two. Our prime minister is Modi. The for Dawai or the for Dakshin. Where this script was Modi, D for Damru. And it earlier was prevalent. I tried to search now, one hardly finds the reference currently, any current reference, whatever earlier references existed remain. But that is slowly becoming a kind of dead script, like the Brahmi script once was, which as good as we can say dead script because it's not in use in a regular manner. When I was in school in Mumbai, Maharashtra, we were required to study four languages. One was Marathi, the local language, which is with Devanagari script. Second was Hindi, the national language, which again had the Devanagari script, so there was no problem. English, which was essential because that is what was becoming language for higher studies, especially if one wants to go for science, technology related studies. And the fourth one was Sanskrit. Understand this, it was the elected government of Maharashtra which has imposed this to make Sanskrit compulsory. However, there was a hitch. In some school, alternate to Sanskrit was given. Some people uh, had French as an alternate, which is a total foreign language, and the others had Ardha Magadhi. Now, Magad is current times Bihar, and Magadhi or Ardha Magadhi were the languages once spoken in Bihar. But that was also taught there alternatively. But overall, more than 80% people carried on with the Sanskrit, possibly because there was no alternative available in their schools. Because if one gives extra alternative, you need one extra teacher who can teach that subject. Later on, that was all removed. Sanskrit started getting into backstage. UPA government even tried to declare it dead. Thank God it was not declared dead. Basically, because most of the ancient literature for this country is in Sanskrit. Now, having said all this, I just wanted to bring to everyone's, uh, what shall I say, in front of everyone that uh, currently such changes keep taking place. I'm almost 75 years of age, and in my life, I saw there was one script Modi which was taught in primary school has disappeared. Languages like Sanskrit which have gone backstage but are likely to now come back again because of the large ancient literature available, and languages like Ardhamagadi, which were trying to make a comeback but have lost. If this can happen in my lifetime, if you talk about the time period involved, like initial part of Rigveda is said to be some 25,000 years ago or more. How many transition might have happened during this period? Last 200 years, it was 200 years. It was probably because of the English rule and impact of English. There could have been many reasons for having different impacts for 25,000 years or more. There is also one, what shall I say, additional likely reason. We see that almost anywhere there is politics coming up, one reason or the other. And even today, we find the politics in educational institutions. So it is possible that although Sanskrit was the language used at the knowledge center where everyone was coming and studying, someone doesn't go with well with the management of that knowledge center, comes out and says, okay, I start my own things and I will start with my own script, my own language, and possibly other languages came up, but like we find many parties coming up, political parties coming up, and then slowly they die down because they don't get the support. Likewise, possibly these many other languages as well as a script, Brahmi script, Modi script, or even the script which one finds in Mohenjo-daro and Harappa excavations. All these might have come up for one or the other reason, but could not compete with Sanskrit, and that's why they died down. Sanskrit appears to be the exclusive language of the knowledge center. So anyone and everyone wants to go and study. One goes to uh, uh, a Gurukul or whatever was the arrangement then. Today we find that there is a professor community. They do go and do the studies, graduation, masters, doctorate, and they go into teaching. Actually, that is what the Brahman Varna once was, who would only study, do the research, and go into teaching. And it was not only for the Sanskrit language, but was for any and every other field where the knowledge was involved. Just to give you an example, Brahmans knew where to get the iron ore from, how to convert it to make iron and steel, which steel is good for making swords, how to sharpen the swords so that a durable sword can be made, which doesn't break, it's sufficiently sharp to chop off someone's head with one stroke. But Brahmins never did that themselves. They taught this to their own students. One another Varna which came for studies was the Kshatriyas. Now, Kshatriyas were the management, governance, law and order people. They would take care of law and order. They would raise an army to defend the entire kingdom or the empire. They would manage the show. They would tax the people, and in any case of difficulty, That time there were no books and no Google search, so they would go back to their guru to get their doubts cleared. So these Kshatriya also would go to guru to learn about various weapons, and yet Kshatriyas themselves never made any one of those weapons. They used them. The third Varna was Vaishya, who were the traders. They would trade in any and every commodity that was required. So if swords were required, arrows were required, and they are not being made in that particular kingdom, then they would go hunt out wherever it is possible, and for that to buy, they should also know the quality. So they would also learn about the quality of the steel, sharpness, etc., etc., and the cost related aspect of it, the commerce, everything related to commerce, and locate the source and would inform the king so that it could be purchased and brought for the use. But the Vaishyas themselves never did it. So the three major so-called major Varna, which British called higher class people, didn't do any one of these things. The who was doing it? So it was a fourth group. The fourth group was neither interested in studies and teaching, nor was interested in the management or law and order, nor was interested in trading. That was the manufacturing group. These people would go and learn everything about these weapons, have their own workshops, and make the required weapons for the king. They were also carpenters. Now, these carpenters would make carts, horse carts, and bullock carts, which were required for almost everyone. The horse carts were required for the warriors, and the bullock carts, every family required for moving either their family from one place to another, or for getting the material from one place to another. If the material is in large quantity. Even the farmers required the help of carpenter, because including the plow, the various items required for farming were those days made of wood, and someone would make that for them. Farmer wouldn't make it for himself, and the another group who would again take the help of carpenters, as well as these workshops, metal workshops, where the handlooms were made, and using the handlooms he would make the cloth which would be required by anyone and everyone. So this fourth class was the Kshudras, which was the manufacturing class, and that was really the business class. So it was this fourth class which was responsible for the golden era of Bharatvarsh. Till British took over the country, this is how it existed. But when British took over, well, as usual, they tried to put everything into their own templates. So there are four Varnas and they wouldn't understand the word. So they look around and find that Italy has got a caste system. That suits them, that they impose the caste system. So whatever is talked about, injustice to the caste, is courtesy British. It didn't exist prior to that. The fourth class was really the business class, which was uh, having their own manufacturing setup, but it was also giving jobs to many. Now, the people doing the job were not the one who were educated like the owners. And the word, unnecessarily, the word gets slightly changed for no reason. Today, you will find a car. I don't know how many of you have noticed this, but I have been noticing for now more than 50 years. I would say there is a community in our country which are known as drivers. They are the drivers on private cars or work in government offices as drivers for the government car or private buses, the public transport, transportation, that is lorry drivers and all that. If you have talked to any one of them, I mean, whosoever I have talked about, whenever there is a problem with the vehicle and you need a mechanic to get it repaired, the driver always will say mechanical and not mechanic. If you try to correct the driver as mechanic, he will try to correct you that it is not mechanic, it is mechanical. Likewise, they will never say traffic, they will always say tropic. I do not know why, but I have seen so many of them that everyone would say tropic, everyone would say mechanical, accepted that both these words are English words and not local words. But this is how the slowly convergence starts from the educated person to a non-educated person involved in similar activities. So if there was someone educated having his own workshop for making some metal parts, and he employed some local uneducated people as helpers, and, and gets the skills developed, the pronunciation will go on differing, changing. Now, coming back to the original thing which I started with, which was the Devanagari script used by Sanskrit, Hindi, Marathi, Konkani, etc. You see, there are 12 swara or vowels, and to the best of my knowledge, you consider any and every language in India which has its own script, and you will find these 12 letters there. Some may make a difference, some may not have two the different they may have one single E, one single U, or they may add something or subtract something, but most of them have these 12 swara. Then you go to these Vyanjana or consonants. Again, most of them have, like Hindi has not considered fine. It's not there. But like I said earlier, Gujarati, Marathi, Konkani, Kannada, Tamil, Malayalam, all they have Sanskrit also has but very sparingly used. And then there is one language which is different from the rest. See, Sanskrit, anyone who takes up the study of Sanskrit language would know that the pronunciations are of utmost importance. Any mantra is to be chanted in Sanskrit, then each and every letter and the word should be pronounced in a particular manner. There is a language which didn't agree with Sanskrit and decided that no, it is not required likewise. And what they did was, instead of having ka, kha, ga, gha, they had only one single letter for Kakha Gaga, the Kanthavya group. Now is separately available, the nasal sound. But these four letters, they had one single letter. Likewise for cha cha ja ja, one single letter. Ta ta da da, one single letter. Ta ta da da, one single letter. Pa pa ba ba, one single letter. Then ya ra la wa were separate. And that language is Tamil. I'm talking about a Tamil some 60, 70, 80 years ago as it existed. Cha, sa, sha, everything was equated to Murdinya group. So Subramanyam short form could be Subba or Chuppa. Srinivasan short form could be Srina or Srinu or China or Chinu or Shrini. These variations were allowed because the pronunciations, different pronunciations were allowed for the same letter. Sanskrit, there is one word, Bhayankaram. It means horrible. Now, if you consider the same word or the same meaning, word with the same meaning in the other language, like say Hindi, it is Bhayankar. Marathi also it is Bhayankar. You go to Bengali, probably it will become Bhayankar. Karnataka, probably it will become Bhayankara. Tamil, what you see if you ask someone to write Bhayankaram in Tamil script, they will write Bhayankaram, but it will be pronounced Bhayankaram. That is speciality of Tamil. I'm not saying anything positive, negative. I'm just trying to make the differences available. The L is in Tamil, but Tamil has got one additional letter which no other language has got. Like Devanagari, I pointed out sh and sh. Sh like Sharbat or sh like Subhash or Vishay. Other languages have L like Bengaluru. Tamil has got L and L. Many people cannot pronounce that. That is being currently uh, spelled as ZH in English. So Koil code becomes Cozy code. And the best part of it is that Tamil, as it is pronounced, in the Tamil manner should be spelled as Thamizh. But the Tamilian themselves do not spell it that way. So I'm just trying to point out what I found the differences. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm not saying anything is inferior or anything is superior. I'm just presenting my own observations. Now, how is it related to the question whether Sanskrit is the oldest language? And the answer is very simple. After saying all these details, when I make my final statements, that you will realize that possibly there is a meaning, some meaning in what I am saying, and possibly this point of view was never adopted by any one of the researchers, unfortunately. The time Sanskrit was the language of education, there was no script those days. 25,000 years ago, there was no durable method for writing and preserving it for a longer period of time. Everything was mukhodgat, by word of mouth, passed on from generation to generation. And when I say generation to generation, it is not father to son. It is from one generation to the next generation. Whosoever is the student. And the script was not required then. The language existed. Knowledge center was Sanskrit language because majority of the things available, whether it is uh, up to Mahabharata, you find most of the things written are in all Samhita, Purana, everything is in Sanskrit. So the language was Sanskrit, and anyone who was well educated was called Susanskrit. The culture so developed was called Sanskriti. And when different regions were having developed differently, deviation in the Sanskriti, which was actually a part of the overall Sanskriti, they would have some cultural programs, Sanskritik Karyakram. Today, in my opinion, almost any and every Indian language uses the word Sanskriti for culture. The word which has come as a result of Sanskrit language to Sanskrit, that is educated person, and then the culture getting developed. Sanskriti. I may be wrong, but if your language has got a word Sanskriti or culture, your language is a descendant of Sanskrit, was developed at a later date. Like Hindi has got so many dialects, Sanskrit had too many dialects, simpler form, the grammar was simpler, lot of vocabulary was borrowed from Sanskrit, which every Indian language has, and as and when need arose, that they decided to have their own script. Like Marathi, Hindi, Konkani have accepted the same Devanagari script, others felt they should have a different script. That is how various other scripts started coming up. So, to end the argument, the word Sanskriti holds the key to decide which is the most ancient language. That's my opinion. I may be wrong. You're free to challenge it. Please do come with a proper evidence or logical explanation. Just saying, hey, you're wrong, will expose yourself. And I want someone to come forward to prove me wrong. Just saying that so and so from Western country had said otherwise. I care a damn. You ask the person who had said that, just ask him to say Sanskrit. He will not be in a position to pronounce Sanskrit and he will decide whether Sanskrit is the ancient language or not. Ridiculous. Let the people know what they are talking about, not just judging the book by the cover. Better someone reads the book, does some research on the book, understand the things thoroughly, and then puts the logical arguments, if any. So that's what all I have to say for the day. Thank you for listening. Jai Hind.